Welcome to On the Grass. I'm your host, Archie Brown, for this latest episode. I'm joined alongside me by Senior Lecturer at the University of Derby, Peter Lansley. Lucy Trail is also our co-host this afternoon. And our guest is Graham Abercrombie, fresh off experience at Sheffield FC. And of course, UEFA A licensed coach. Graham, thanks for being with us this afternoon.
Oh, you're welcome.
Cheers. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit later about your career, your journey so far. But Pete, I believe you've got a
little icebreaker for you. Yeah, our regular listeners and watchers will know what we're going to throw you in on, but Graham doesn't. So bad luck. So it's 1 hour before West Brom's biggest moment. They're on the verge. We now know that they did win the third tier. Fantastic achievement. But which, as you're with your players, which of the four corners of the long-term player development model are you going to be focusing on? Psychological, tech-tac, social, physical. And you're going to have 30 seconds.
I believe we've got a timer going up any minute now.
At that stage, it's always about the psychological. It's about keeping people calm. There's not too much lead in the boots, of course, but they all come from the mind, and they can just go out and do the thing that they've done a million times in their life before, which is play a game of football. And that was the focus on that particular day that you're talking about 10 years ago. And that's it, really. It's just about keeping people calm and making sure that it's just another game, despite the reward at the end of it.
Yeah,
there we go. Perfect timing. 5 seconds to spare as well. Well, obviously, Lucy, you've spent time this season at Sheffield FC. There we go, find a whistle as well. You spent time this season at Sheffield, on loan from Derby, of course. Can you talk me through your relationship with Graham so far and how you know him?
Yeah, I think it's been a great season this far. Obviously, you guided us to a 6th place win in your return to the Tier 4 with Sheffield. It's been quite a long time since Sheffield have been in Tier 4. And then obviously the County Cup final, 2nd place in that. What's it like kind of been? Like, how pleased have you been this season with the achievements?
I've been over the moon, really. As a newly promoted club, the jumps are massive from any division to the next. They're huge. And people don't always appreciate that. They think you can just keep going and going and going. And ultimately, the jumps are so big that if you look at any other division, whether it be 3rd tier, 4th tier, 5th tier, the leagues around us, you look at all the newly promoted clubs and where they've come, and none of them have finished as high as we did. So I think that puts it into context of what we've achieved. We would like to have finished higher. We had ambition to finish higher. We believed we could finish higher. And ultimately, we run out of gas a little bit, I think, towards the end of the season, and that's very normal for a newly promoted team because the season is long. But yeah, I'm over the moon with the way we've operated this season, and yeah, it's been a great achievement that the club can now go and build on.
Yeah, because obviously we came into Christmas, I think, in 3rd, and it was a great achievement for the club. I don't think anybody was kind of expecting us to kind of be there. Kind of, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think 2nd or 3rd was possible. Yeah. Small chance, but possible. And ultimately, what happened, as you'll know better than anybody, we had a 10-week break due to the weather situation, and it really hurt us. It hurt us because, one, we were a grass pitch, at a home pitch, so all home games got cancelled. The unfortunate thing was that the 2 or 3 away games in that period were also on grass pitches, so they got cancelled. Had we had a couple that were on Astro, we could have got a couple of games in. So ultimately, we had a 10-week break. We played a couple of friendlies, and they're just not the same. You're so worried about picking up injuries, but you're also worried that we get a bit rusty, so you try and protect, but you also need the game time. And finding that balance in a friendly is really tricky. So we came into the league programme back again after 10 weeks off against 2nd in the league, which was Boldmere. And they're a phenomenal team that have just got promoted.
Is that Carl Henry's team?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's an abrasive affair. It's tough. It's physically tough. It's emotionally tough. It's mentally tough, as you know, as a player, but also from the coaching staff. It's a tough scenario to step back into as a first game back after 10 weeks out. And we got found out a little bit that day. And ultimately that put pay to our 2nd place hopes. Then 3rd place became the thing, but we still weren't up to speed with everyone else. Everyone else had played 3 or 4 games where we'd played the one and got a bit of a beating, as it looked on paper. And we ended up playing Leafield very quickly, and Leafield were 3rd, so we played 2nd and 3rd very quickly, and we just couldn't. We lost that game, I think it was 1-0, wasn't it? Yeah, 1-0. And so we were close, but not quite close enough, and then all of a sudden, the 2nd and 3rd place chances were almost 0.
Yeah.
And I think that carried into the rest of the games then. You know, the reality of, well, is it worth fighting for fourth? And really, your own subconscious is telling you, well, what does fourth matter? As much as, you know, we did fight for everything, but you don't find the extra 10% juice that you need to make that more possible. So we ended up finishing 6th, but very credible still.
Can I ask you, Lucy, what was it like playing? Because you've gone from Derby under-21s, been in and around Derby first team squad last summer, and then you've had the experience of playing in the 4th tier at Sheffield. How do those, you know, juniors to seniors to a different tier, how do they compare?
It's just like a completely different standard of football, really. Going from under-21s where, like, all they're kind of focused on is, like, technical, like, everyone, like, it's kind of individual, like, they're trying to progress different players up and they kind of know kind of who's going to make it kind of thing. So I feel like it's a bit, like, individually focused. Whereas you go to senior football, it's completely different. Like, the standards just, like, everyone's stronger, everyone's, like, wanting to win it for the team. I feel like the, like, level's a lot different to playing at junior football.
Is it physicality? Is that one of the main things?
The physicality is a lot different. Like, I'd say in under-21s I was like a lot stronger than
Yeah.
a lot of the players because I'm quite a bit taller, but then coming into women's football I'd be against someone quite a bit taller than me, quite a bit like stronger than me, and like it's obviously a completely different challenge in kind of that way.
Yeah. And how do you, when you've got players coming on loan, technically, you know, very decent standard, how do you work on that physicality while not losing the technical side?
Yeah, it's a skill. There's no doubts about it. And I've worked with lots of youngsters, so that helps. Over my years, almost 20 years now, I've always brought in youngsters because I always think they're fearless and they're open-minded and generally give their best all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that the other ones
Yeah.
don't, but I've always blooded young players because I always believe that the quicker we get them on the pitch, the more experience they'll gain and they'll be advanced on the other kids who've had 10 minutes here and 5 minutes there and so on. We've had 4 games and we've got players who are 21 in our group now who are blooded at 16 and they've got 150 games under their belt almost in 5 years. At 21 to have 150 games, and I'm talking about Liv Harness as a great example, to have 150 games almost under her belt at 21. Well, she's so far in front of 21-year-olds today. But in terms of blooding, when you get somebody new and fresh, it's all about the nurture piece of keep doing what you're doing, what you're capable of. But you have got to find out the hard way that you need to be more robust. You've got to put your head in where it hurts. You've got to put your body on the line. And you've got to figure it out, particularly as a newly promoted team, because we had to rely on that as much as our ability.
Yes.
Because our ability was a newly formed team, lots of tier 5 players, and we had to make the gap smaller than it was. So we have to rely on a bit of physicality, and set pieces are important, of course, both ends. So, and that's part of you need to go out there now and figure it out. And throwing people out there is where that self-correction comes. And as a good player with intelligence and somebody who's desperate to be better, like Lucy, you figure it out. You go out there and you do. And we noticed huge changes with Lucy. Within weeks, we saw changes. We saw a complete midfielder being born over this beautiful, technical, can use the ball, can score a great goal, scored a lot of goals for us from midfield. Somebody who can do that, but now has become more complete. And that's certainly my observation, and I hope Lucy feels the same. But now we've got a superstar midfield player at tier 4 level and ready to go to the next stages. There's no doubts in my mind. But that's part of a hand-holding process, but also this, I trust you to self-correct now.
Okay.
You will do it. And we'll have this little feedback, but it's not formal feedback. It's not that, sit down, let's talk about it, let's figure it out and blah, blah, blah. It's not that. It's a little nod, it's a little wink, it's a thumbs up that says, I'm doing okay. Am I doing okay? I'm doing okay. Yeah, good. Keep going. And it's really that simple.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on that as well, how do you, as you know, your role at Sheffield FC, how do you maintain the development of a player whilst keeping it fun and keeping it balanced for them in their development phase?
Well, we don't focus on the fun, if I'm being perfectly honest, and there's some sort of humour to what we talk about when we say, if you want fun, go to the fair. We're here to win, you know, we're here to win, we're here to compete, because you can have all the fun in the world. If you lose a game, when it comes to that final whistle and you come to the huddle at the end of the game, and there's sad faces. Yep. So you might have enjoyed playing, but you've just lost, and that there's nothing more overwhelming than that. other than the other end of the scale when you've won. So in terms of fun, the fun comes at training in terms of there's a buoyancy to what we do, there's an intensity to what we do, and there's a certainty to what we do. But it's not fun focused. If you can have a giggle because what you're producing is good, we can have a giggle alongside that. But if you're not producing what's needed and what's required, we're going to drill down into that first. Yeah. And that doesn't mean berating people. Oh no, my language is good, my tone is good, and there's never any swear word ever from my mouth. So it's not like that sort of correction, but there will be, listen, we need to refocus here because we are not producing at training what we need to prepare us correctly for a Sunday. And that's where we're at, really. So we do have a balance, we do have a giggle, and we have a great sense of humour in the moments that are correct and appropriate, but not at the expense of we're here to work first.
Yeah, absolutely. And just switching gears slightly, obviously Sheffield FC, there was a structural change in the ownership with John McClure coming in. What are your thoughts on how he and obviously brother is Steve Bracknell, the persona of the thing he's building on social media, and obviously the charity game that they had at Sheffield FC. What do you think of how much grassroots has improved in the social media aspect of things during your time as coach?
I think it's improved dramatically across the board.
Yeah.
I think with us, we were poor for the women's team specifically. So yeah, I have contentious issues with how we put ourselves out there and what we did, particularly off the back of a promotion and a cup final win, a double last season. How we went about our recruitment piece via social media. We didn't get that right. We got it wrong, and I made my feelings clear about that because we missed opportunities. And listen, I'm perfectly happy with what we did recruit in the end, but that was from boots on the ground, hard graft, and a network, using your own personal networks. I think we could have got more to enhance the group slightly better. And add to what we had, but what we had was incredible. It was stunning, and I hope we talk about that because the dynamics of the group, the culture we built was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like people coming in with a celebrity status, as you will, you've seen it across all different levels of football. Robbie Savage at Macclesfield, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney at Wrexham. How does it differ from a team a little bit lower down the footballing pyramid when someone who's got a bit of an illustrious career in local music anyway, comes into that club, and does that change anything, interiorly, or is there anything different that you see? Or
I think it builds a perception to the outside world. I think internally, I don't think we care too much about it. It's about what we can, how that helps us, and if it doesn't help us, well, what's the point? Has it helped the club as a main? Has it put the brand under a few more people's noses? Absolutely. There's no doubts about that. But has it helped us as a group? And the answer to that is no. It hasn't helped us. We haven't got 200 people turning up to our women's game before having 30 or 40 turn up. We haven't got 200, 300, 500 people turning up because of it. We haven't gained anything structurally that we need. We haven't gained anything resource-wise that we need from it. So as a football person, it doesn't really interest me too much, although I understand the badge and the overall perception of the club is definitely out there a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you watch it? Do you listen to it? The game's gone. I mean, now it's on the BBC, isn't it?
What's that? Sorry,
the game's gone.
Yeah, Steve Bracknell's podcast.
Oh yeah. I don't listen to things like that, to be honest. No, it doesn't.
You'll be listening to On the Grass, of course.
Oh, 100%. Of course. This will be my go-to every week.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, what we talked about social media and the influence on that. You talked about the changes that need to be made. What would you do? The number one thing, what would it be to enforce the change that you were just talking about getting more people to the stadium, getting new equipment, stuff like that? How would you implement that?
Oh wow! To get more supporters through the gate at women's football, and you'll see the clubs who do it really well versus the ones who don't do it at all well, and it really is about the experience. It's not the football's almost a sideshow. Yeah. And that's nice that we support something, and we have some hardcore supporters who are fantastic. So I don't want to belittle the fact that there is people that do come, and they are really great supporters. But ultimately, it's about the experience. It's about why would I take my children to a women's game? What's in it for them? What's in it for me taking them so I can watch the game and they can do something, and we feel $1 million for turning up. What's in it for us? Would be my, as a supporter and a dad's hat, and lots of clubs put lots on for people and families and children, and the food, type of food, the music that's playing, the pre-match, half-time, post-match stuff.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on there? And unfortunately, we don't do any of that. Or I say we. Obviously, I'm not there now, but we didn't do any of that. And yet, this has been put forward time and time again. And there's been a little bit of lip service paid towards it previously, but ultimately, not enough to get our 30-40 numbers into the 200, 300, 400 category.
Did that contribute to you leaving them?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely elements of that. There's a lot that contributed to it.
Go on, talk us through them.
Well, things like that. I want our club to fulfil itself, really, so that people from the surrounding area locally could come and have a great experience, have a great time. That makes you self-sufficient in some parts, even if it's just the good news stories that come out from that becomes upward. And then it's just the infrastructure of what we've got. You know, you can't keep relying on just good people. 20 years ago, that was what it was built on.
Yeah.
And it's so different now because you can rely on good people, but everyone else has got everything else. And when you've got nothing else other than good people, it's an unfair playing field then. And ultimately, that's an internal piece. So I think there's a lot of work to be done at the club. The new ownership will know that. But from my perspective, I think and it is just my opinion, I think it's going to be 2 years before there's any forward motion.
Right.
Purely because I think it's going to take a year to learn what's needed. I think it's going to take a year to figure out their changes and implications to what they've added to find out how that worked. And then the third year, there's a small chance of some forward motion.
Did you sit down and talk to John McClure about it?
Yeah, I've spoken and spoken and spoken and spoken. And yeah, I think there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So to prioritise anything is difficult.
Yeah.
But I'm fighting our corner. And
the women's team.
The women's team, absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
I'm fighting the women's team corner, despite being a huge advocate of the club.
Yeah.
I was in charge of this particular department.
Yeah. Because we're talking about the oldest football club here, aren't we?
Yes, the world's first oldest football club, and to be the oldest football club, you'd think you'd have everything down. You know how to do it because you've been doing it for longer than anybody.
Yeah.
So you should know how to do it, and unfortunately, it's going through a transitional stage of newness doesn't mean better. Newness can mean better eventually, but not maybe in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've spoken about your career recently. Do you want to just take me back to how your career started and what really got you into the role that you eventually got? For sure, yeah. I've coached for, I think it's 35 years now. I started off as just a junior grassroots coach and got inspired by a teacher who asked me to look after his son's team, despite me being a youngster at the time, 17 years old. And I took that as the greatest honour. A PE teacher was asking me. I was like, wow, okay. But I always loved coaching. I always understood the coaching aspect. I love playing, but coaching was always going to be my thing. And ultimately, after about 15 years, I got introduced to women's football by chance. A good friend of mine was leaving Worcester City Women. He was heading to a job in the States, and at Christmas time, he sort of asked me, Graham, would you take over the women's team at Worcester City? And I said, well, I'll have a look. But I'm not doing it if they're not serious about it. If it's a social goof around, I'm not doing it. But I'll have a look. I'll come to a game and I'll put on a training session. And they were superb. They were so serious. They were after it. And I was like, okay, well, this is me. I'm in. When can I start? And there was this little handover period with me and my pal. And he went off to the States and made a great success of himself. And I took over Worcester City Women back into 2008. And ultimately, we were ultra successful. We did back-to-back doubles. So that was class. We got a promotion. And then we got promoted the year after which, again, I've said how difficult that is. Even back then, it was super difficult. And we did it. And it was like, wow, okay. It felt like everything you touched turned to gold, really. And but we were serious. We did the job well. And
what were you coaching twice a week, or
at that point we was doing once a week?
Wow.
And we had a tight group, 17 players I had, and all 17 took on training every week. There was zero dropouts because they knew how I operated, And it was like, oh, we can't miss anymore. Even if we had that 50-50, I've got to get there. And if I'm a bit under the weather, I've still got to get there. And the consistency of how I worked built this. And everyone was fighting for a shirt, which was that ultimate, I've got to be at my best. And we produced what we did. I then completed my B licence just after that. And my tutor on the B licence was a guy called Duncan Riddle. He was an incredible guy. And he was head of community at Aston Villa. And he said, I've got a job for you. I was like, okay, brilliant. Thinking maybe some community work or manage the women's team. So I jumped from tier 6 and tier 5 winners. The club folded, by the way. Worcester folded when they got promoted to tier 4 because they just didn't want to do the journey. So the club folded, which was incredibly sad. And I was devastated. But I got offered the Villa job, which was at the time tier 2. But in essence, it was tier 1 because it was the year that everyone broke away to form the Super League. Okay. So they weren't operating. So in essence, it was the tier 1. Yeah. But it was ultimately tier 2, and we had they were a newly promoted team as well to tier 2, Aston Villa. So I took on that team, and we had the highest place finish ever in their history at the stage until they got promoted to tier 1 very recently, and it just went from there really. And obviously, I went to Nottingham Forest. Was having a terrific season there, and had some internal wranglings, some interference.
Well, when's this then? Whose reign was it? What year was it?
Yeah, that year at Forest it was 2013-14 season.
Okay, was Steve Cottrell the men's manager around there?
I think he may have been. I can't quite remember, but
you
I
had
think
a very enthusiastic owner. I seem to remember.
Yeah, there was a lot of interference, and on the women's side there was interference as well. And we were top of the league. We were the only unbeaten team in the country at tier 3, both north and south. We'd won 7 and lost and drew 3, and there was just too much for me to cope with. And it really was this. There wasn't an agenda being ticked for someone else, and they became awkward for me. So I stepped away at Christmas time at Forest and I said, I can't keep doing this. I was already making a journey from Worcester. I was doing a 200-mile round trip for training twice a week and match day, and we were going to win the 3rd tier. But I just couldn't cope with it really. I was like, oh, this is too much. We weren't getting paid. We were getting no money. I think we was getting a little bit of fuel, which didn't cover too much at the time, 2013-14 season. Stepped away from that then. Was all set for having a bit of a breather. And then the West Brom job came up. So I applied for that. I was local. I was born in West Brom. It's my club. And so I applied for it. I got that job as technical director of the Girls Academy at the RTC, as it is now. And also the women's first team manager, and we just had the most incredible 2 years there, and we survived relegation the first year at tier 3 by a point, but I built the youngest team in Premier League history as it was. And let's come back to my developing youngsters. I promoted 6 or 7 from the Girls Academy. They got talent, they could play, but they didn't know how to be adults. So we said, go and be adults. Okay. And they figured it out. So we came 10th. So you imagine a team that's come 10th this year, winning the league next year. And women's level teams, leagues of 12.
In 3rd tier, so that's what Derby, that would be Derby winning the league next year.
Yeah. Well, and Derby finished higher than 10th, of course. Right. They'd finished 8th, I think, this year. Okay. So imagine someone even lower, who's just clung on, winning it. So, and I think that, I don't know who that would be now.
Halifax?
Hull. Imagine Hull winning next year, for instance. We did that. Yeah, but I knew it was, and I almost got the sack, through performance. And I pleaded. I said, just hold with me, please. Let me. We had an awful second pre-season. We lost every game apart from a couple of draws, and we won the very last pre-season game. And there was like, you're done if you don't win this last one. And I was like, just bear with me, please bear with me, because I know what we're doing. And ultimately, we could see things that other people couldn't see, and we just went and won the league. It was, and somebody joked at the end of the season, one of the players joked, and it was brilliant. It was the funniest thing. She said something like, when you try to avoid relegation but accidentally win the league. and it was such good humour, and it was terrific. We had the most monumental season, won the County Cup for the first time ever in the Birmingham County Cup, which is very competitive. We got to the Women's FA Cup quarter-final. Second time ever in history that a 3rd tier team had got to the quarterfinals. I don't know if it's ever been done since. And we won the league. So we did a double. We got to the FA Cup quarterfinal, played against Man City. We had the most credible 2-0 loss at Man City. They got the full team out, and we lost 2-0.
Who was playing? Go on. Who was in that Man City team that we?
The England back four. Steph Horton was there. The England back four. There was Demi Stokes, Lucy Bronze was playing.
God.
The goalkeeper. I forget her name. Oh goodness me.
Not Roebuck. No, before her.
No, before
but
her.
Anyway,
the
amazing.
Swedish captain in midfield, the Scottish captain up front. We were incredible. We hit the crossbar in the last 10 minutes, which made it 2-1 and interesting. But we had such a great season, and it felt like it was the season that Leicester won the Men's Premier League. So you can imagine it was this mystical, magical year for football in general, and we just had a great time. So that's my journey really. And I went to the States then for a year. Begrudgingly, I went to the States, but I got an opportunity and I took it. And the reason I took it, 100%, the only reason, and I regret it now, the reason I took it was because I'd preached to all of our players, take your opportunities. And I'm not talking about on the field, I'm talking about off the field.
Yeah.
When something presents itself, don't be a shrinking violet, go for it. Go for it. Whether that be football pathway, whether it be life pathway, go for it. And I'd got this opportunity, I was like, oh, I've got to back up my talk. And I don't want to leave the champions because we can win it again. We lost the playoff final against Brighton, which was heartbreaking because that season, obviously the top two played off.
Only one went up.
Only
from
one
the
out
two
the two.
divisions. Yeah.
The year after, I think, or maybe 2 years later, within both went up and started to go up, and so timing and circumstance hurt us, and we lost the final. So I took this opportunity to go to the States. Came back after a year and got the Forest job, and I'd got the blueprint. I was building that at Forest again with youngsters, hardcore experience, and building that nicely. And then what happened at Forest, I had 2 seasons at Forest, ready to make an assault to win it, the 3rd tier. And ultimately the men's club took over. They brought in a general manager that was a bit of a bridge. And I think, being frank and honest, the general manager wanted his own people. Regardless of the work we were doing, regardless of who you were, what your standing was, it was, I just want my own people. And that's what happened. And we got moved on very quickly, and it was meant to feel that way really, which was horrible because I knew what we was building again. We was in front of everyone else's curve really. Yeah. In terms of what they could see vision wise, and we was going to do it. And ultimately they did do it, but with mass investment.
Oh yeah.
It was a world apart.
I wanted to come on to that because you look now at Forest having gone up and Newcastle having gone up. Now Burnley have gone up.
Yeah.
And Wolves through the playoffs, but they've gone up, which is exciting for me as a Wolves fan. Sorry.
Yeah.
And those clubs have done great, don't get me wrong. And I know some of the people involved in coaching and how much have been put into it and all the volunteers and everything. But they've been well backed. Derby, we know, we keep in touch with the Derby County women people here. And, they were pushing for promotion back when up against Forest 3, 4, 5 years ago. And now, unless you're actually putting in professional money, you're going to struggle to compete to get up. Do you think, where is the gap in women's football? Because I've got a right old bee in my bonnet, but let's hear it from a professional. You got the WSL, fine. Now you got the WSL 2. We talked about Newcastle, Forest, Burnley, etc. Where is the gap, and is it a healthy gap?
The gap's still in coaching.
Okay.
It still is. And I have to believe that.
Yeah.
I have to. And not because I'm a coach, because I believe in human beings. I still think there's a squad at any level that's appropriate for the level where you can put 20 people together and win a league. I still believe that, and I still believe with the right coaching, with the right values, and the values are more important than the coaching. But the values, the boundaries...
The environment.
Yeah, the boundaries you set.
Yeah.
And the rules that you don't have are as important as more important than the ones you do. I think with that, I think you can still win a league. You still need some help financially now, though. It doesn't have to match. I think if you have half of what the top teams have, I think great coaching bridges that comfortably.
Really?
I really do. I think that's absolute. But there is a level of player you can buy in with money. And unfortunately, who will drop their own standards to grab the money and play beneath themselves, which distorts things hugely. There's some players who shouldn't be at tier 4, who are at tier 4, maybe with the promise of getting back to tier 3 and tier 2 at some stage in their life, but not guaranteed. So I do worry about that. I wouldn't do that as a player. for no amount of money. I'd want to be at the level, the standard, the test, and the challenge. But some people, obviously, money counts to them. But for me, no. And we've built the most beautiful squad at Sheffield with very little money. We have some money, but it's a thank you rather than pay your mortgage. It pays your petrol bill, if that. And that's the something rather than paying subs and that sort of business. So I think the gap isn't as big as what people want to make out. I think it's about good people and good coaching still, but ultimately the values you bring, how you cope with things, how you deal with things, how humble you can be in victory, but also how classy you can be in defeat. I think that's ultimately super important. They're only words here, but when you live and breathe that, that transcends.
Definitely.
And people find extras for you and with you.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because Graham and I get on quite well because we bumped into each other at university, and immediately I got, what you're on about. I love your sort of quirkiness and the way you go about things. But I really disagree with you there. So I'll just throw that one in. You're meant to do that in podcasts, aren't you?
I suppose so.
Because I think when women's football was like getting really... After the 2019 World Cup, were you watching that 2019 World Cup? How old were you then? Yeah. And then, boom, what an opportunity. And then England Lionesses winning. Top end of the game, you look at the amount of homegrown players in the top flight now. It's going down to the level of men's football. No, I think they've missed a trick. Totally missed a trick. If they'd got ceilings in, if they'd got wage caps in, if they'd looked after the clubs coming up and clubs going down, all of that, I think we would have had a chance of women's football being different and sustainable. Whereas now the top end of it is just going over the horizon, same as the men's game. And that was WSL, then it's the Championship, now it's the top 4 of third tier in my view. And however good the coaching is, and I've seen some great examples and some noisy examples and some very different examples in the third tier, but those teams for me don't stand a cat and hell's chance of competing with those there.
Yeah. Graham, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately, I hear what you're saying, and I think that's the surface level, if I'm being honest, without being rude.
Yeah.
I think that is the surface level. That
you've lived it, you've
that money will get this player. And I've alluded to that already. You can far reach and drag people to a standard with money because of their values, the players' values.
Yes, okay.
Right? But now, what you're talking about there is the coach's values. So the coach's values is, I've got X amount of money, I'm going to spend it all. I'm going to bring in...
Yeah.
Without even looking
close
by. Without even looking at what I've got. Why do I need to do that? I would do that. I would spend a fraction of the money and do that. And I would look closer. You can't tell me in this day and age, I run an under-8s girls team, still my daughter's team. The talent at under-8s is frightening. But if somebody could bring in an American girl or a Brazilian girl, they would go there first because of their own values and saying, oh, they must be better because they're foreign. They must be. And the American system is so much better. But no, the talent is here. The talent is here. You just got to give it that opportunity to cross the white line and throw them out there. Get playing. Yeah. Get out there, get going. And then you get 21-year-olds with 150 games under their belt.
Yeah.
And that 21-year-old is so much better than the discarded one for somebody else who's got 150 games maybe, but at tier 7 and tier 8 and a reserve league situation. That's the difference. And that's why I believe in coaching still, because experience is the crucial element and people aren't willing to do that. And that's why the men's game is what it is. You can't tell me there's not English players coming through the men's game that aren't superb. And look at the opportunity, look at the England team, full of talent.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And all the ones who've been given opportunities. So if you times that by 100...
Yeah, exactly.
There's going to be 100 versions of
Phil Foden. Totally with you. But then how do we get, that Derby Under-21 team from last year that won their... what did you win, the cup? I can't remember.
Like the Reserve National League Cup.
Yeah. How do we get them flooding into third and fourth tier?
Better
and getting
coaches.
The 150...
Not better coaching, better coaches.
Okay.
People who believe in them.
Okay.
People who've got experience that says... I've got the evidence that if I give Lucy Trail 30 games under her belt, or 20 games as it was this year, under her belt, she's 20 games advanced and she ain't the finished article yet. But in 2 years' time, she's going to be an absolute monster of a football player. As long as she keeps getting games. the TLC when needed,
Yeah.
the clip round the ear hole when needed, and all of that, and find balance, and that you're doing okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you need to do this next to get to the next stage. And I'll talk about to the whole group about you're ready for the next stage now. This is the next part of our focus, your development. The glass ceiling's gone through now, and this is the next part. And that's just the correct coach. That's the belief in the group we've built. Otherwise, what they're doing there, if I don't believe in them as a coach, why have I signed you? Why have I recruited you? And so I do think that the talent is there. You need the right people who are going to go, I'm beyond the result. I am beyond the result. I totally am. I couldn't care less. I am about performance. If you go out there and try your best and you give everything and you've learnt a fraction of something ready to improve you for next week, we've won. Job done.
Absolutely. Yeah, talking about as well, Lucy, your time at Sheffield FC, do you want to just discuss about the difference between the boys and girls development sides? Obviously, you've talked about your coaching at under 8s, but Lucy, your experiences past, is that something that's kind of clashed with what you've been doing coaching-wise? Or so do you want to just discuss about your youth career?
Yeah, I think just like, what would you kind of say is the difference between boys and girls kind of coaching-wise? Because obviously growing up I played boys and girls football, and I think it's very different kind of to what you kind of expect. What would you kind of say is the differences when you kind of coach in that?
I think the coaching's the same, if I'm being honest. The content's the same. The manner may be different slightly. I have more fun with the girls than I do with the boys. I think the boys are too chaotic for me to have too much fun with. You're too busy reining them in a little bit, and getting them focused. But the girls, they still have lots of fun. My little under 8s, they are bonkers. And I love it because they're ultra confident. They're overconfident. I'm like, keep going. Keep going with that because that's going to stand you in good stead down the line. But in terms of the coaching content, it's absolutely the same. There's no doubt. I think the boys naturally are more robust and bouncy. And the girls are a little bit more... thoughtful about it all.
Yeah.
There's no doubts about that. They're figuring stuff out. But again, you see the development, and I'm all for take your time. Let's get it right, and then the speed and the intensity will come.
Yeah.
But let's get it right first. Get your step over right. Get your steps right. Get your drag back. Get your pass. And so on. Whatever it is we're working on, get that right first. I don't mind how quick it is, because it's going to get quicker once you crack it.
What were your coaches like, and what was the football environment like for you? When did you enter Derby County's setup then? What age would you have been?
I joined Derby when I was 8.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what did you notice that was different in the in the way the girls were playing within their coaching session for girls at Derby compared with when you were playing grassroots and it was boys and girls?
I think it was different because I think the coaches were obviously like teaching us more different abilities. Like obviously you've got like your scanning, your all that kind of stuff. Whereas I feel like at grassroots you don't really get that. Where I was younger, it was kind of like passing, like you're dribbling, you're shooting, kind of more the basics, like the fundamentals of football. Whereas when you go into academy, it's more like the like mentality behind it, and then like kind of the skills that you kind of add on to it.
And how were the girls different from the boys? Because I noticed a real difference. I'd ask you in a moment. What did you find? The girls under 8s to under 12s or whatever, how were they compared with the mixed? Never mind the coaching, but the actual players.
I don't know. I feel like the boys, like at first when I kind of first joined them, they were a bit like, oh, why is there a girl on the team?
Yeah.
A bit like that. And then I kind of showed them that I was like one of the best players there. And they kind of took me on a bit, and they were like, oh yeah, girls can actually be like kind of good at football. Whereas I feel like with the girls, I kind of like stood out a bit from them.
Yeah.
I was like the best, like one of the best players on the team. And I found it like a lot easier in that kind of sense.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the boys kind of challenged me a bit more to be a bit like more physical, like kind of like that.
Yeah, something to prove maybe.
Yeah.
As well,
Yeah. When I'm with I have a mixed team at Brassington Primary, and we've got 25 there on Monday, and we've got 8 girls now. It's going really well again. And the girls, even if they're new to it, like the goalie will get it, and the girls are just like spreading out, and the boys just like, I want to be in front of the goal in the middle of the pitch. And I haven't told them to do this. The girls are just doing it. Their spatial awareness at 8, 9, 10. What's it like when you're in a professional environment? But do you know what I'm saying? So for a professional coach going and working at under 8s, do you find that as well, or is it different?
what
The girls seem to have a different innate sense of space is the main thing.
I haven't noticed it particularly, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I just think that the girls are just more thoughtful with it all.
Yeah.
You know, when you're working technically. And bear in mind, at under 8s, if I'm being perfectly honest and frank, I think there's a lot of people try and race them through where they need to be. And we're still very much at the ball manipulation and control and coming up with fun games and at that appropriate level, really, of what a 7 and 8 year old should be doing. So, and my manner from the side is the same. We're not interested in winning. If we win, we're a bonus. If we lose, okay, everyone's played, everyone's had equal play time, and goalkeepers have all rotated, and so on and so on. So we get it right, and not at the expense of anybody do we try and win a game of football at all. So I haven't noticed any huge differences. I've coached boys in the past, real high level boys and grassroots boys, and you know what? It's all pretty much the same. I think there's nothing more demanding from me at any level. It's all the same. It's pretty consistent. There's an understanding of what you're capable of when you're at a different level. But in terms of what we're trying to do, the content's the same. You can just do it better than we have to go at a slower pace for some, and we can go at a quicker pace for others. But we're still trying to get the same outcomes at this complete player at the end of the day when they're 16 to 18, that's what we were aiming for, but people forget that. They're trying to get it at 7 and 8 now, and I do struggle with that sometimes in the opposite dugout as such, on the side of a junior pitch. I'm like, wow, you are shouting at these and talking to these even at half times or little quarter breaks. You're talking to these children like they're adults, and I struggle with that to the point where I'm like, oh, hang on, coach, come and have a little walk around the block with me for a minute. But I'm like, okay, I've got my own thing to deal with, and we do that. But on the grassroots stuff, it's about including the parents. They're included in all things with me.
Right.
We brief them before every game, home and away supporters. I brief everybody and say, look, this is little reminders, because when them balls start rolling, we change. But let's not do that. Let's remember what we're here for. We've already won before the whistle's been blown. We're ready to go. Our daughters, our granddaughters, our nieces are playing football at 7 years old, and they're playing really well, and they won't care about the result. We'll remind them of the result. We'll nag them about the result. We'll nag them about their performance. But other than that, if we don't do that, they won't care. And they'll just turn up to training in the week and go back to next week. So, yeah, there's lots there grassroots-wise, but it's all pretty consistent as long as your manner's good, I think.
Yeah. What would you kind of say is like a key thing for a grassroots coach to kind of like consider when going into like a new team or the team that they're already kind of managing?
Yeah, I think it's certainly know your own content. Don't try and deliver anything that's outside of your capacity. I see lots of coaches do that. They're trying to do stuff that they've spotted on YouTube. They've grabbed loads of stuff, and actually, they haven't got the coaching point. They haven't got the setup right. So coach within your own capacity, your knowledge capacity, the level you're at as a coach, whether it be introduction to football now, or whether it be level 2 C license, whatever it's called, whether it be those sort of things. Coach within the level. Coach within what you know, and stick with that, and add and tweak and twist and turn that, and keep that interesting, rather than try and become Jose Mourinho, Pep Guardiola, and expect 7-year-olds to get it. So that would be my first bit of advice. My second bit of advice would be absolutely befriend the parents. This is not you hand them over to me, now you bugger off and get out my face, I don't need you. Because that managing of expectations limits interference. That bringing people close, it limits the interference. It limits the backbiting. If my daughter hasn't played as much as your daughter and so on, it limits that because there's transparency. And you've also generated this connectivity where they can actually talk to you about that, rather than feel that we're so separate and I can't talk to you, so I'm going to now talk to my friend who's then going to sympathise and engulf the flames even further and so on. So definitely befriend your parents, make sure that you're close to them, and rightly so. Ultimately, your players aren't going to get there without parents. Don't beat your parents up don't beat your children up when your parents are late. It's and that, hey kids, what, you're on 2 laps because you were late? What? Head's gone type
can't
stuff.
Drive, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And so on and so. So before you've even done anything on the training ground, there's a lot to do. And I think it is, and be honest, when you've made a mistake, you know, I've got it wrong today, whatever it may be. I always do a pre-match matrix of who's in the 4 quarters. I always do that. Who's coming, how many quarters are they playing, and it's equal, and it's random, and this is where your daughter will be playing. So when they come off in one of the 3 quarters, let's say if we get 6, they tend to play 3 quarters. This is when they're coming off. This is before the game has started. So when they come off, it's not about performance. It's not about me liking or disliking. It's about that's what was planned. And you know this beforehand. So when Jane, who's had a brilliant quarter, comes off, we knew it was coming. When she's had a bad quarter and she comes off, we knew what was coming. And that helps massively again. And I just keep track of that, and I share that with parents all the time. This is what the season has looked like for everybody. So everyone, the star player, the developing player who's never played before until they came to us, have all got equal game time across the course of the season, with a bare minimum of half a game, absolutely. But generally, it's very equal. Even in the quarters where you're like, okay, one's going to get half, one's going to get... We sort of split the quarter, and we do it really well. The problem I have with grassroots football is generally I'm on my own doing it, and that's tricky. You know, I know I've got people who can help me, you know, and who are named people to help. Yeah. But in terms of the commitment and consistency, that's tricky. And I think that's one of the biggest barriers for grassroots, is just getting enough coaches who are committed. Not enough coaches, but the ones who go, we know this is 10 months of my life.
Yeah. But I bet you empower them. I bet you, if you've got that parental buy-in and you're giving we used to, do you want to do water bottles? Do you want to do the raffle? We'd give them all jobs and stuff. And I bet you do all of that. So can't you nurture the next coaches in?
Yeah, yes, in answer to the question, that's really possible. But I think sometimes...
A lot going on in life.
My responsibility is, to them with families as well, you know, to know that they've got... my situation is big, family-wise. I know their situations, and it's difficult. Single mums with children, here, there and everywhere. Big families, 3 or 4 children. And that is the reality. That's not just, the far-reaching extremes. That is the reality of what we have. Grandma's bringing very often because mum or dad are doing, and so on. So we're dealing with a lot of things like that. So I do try and protect, overly and wrongly, for my own benefit sometimes. I do try and protect, and I do suffer the weight of that. There's no doubts, but it's for the right reasons. But there is moments when you just go, I could do with somebody really helping me out. Yeah. But it is what it is. I wouldn't have it any other way, really. But if somebody wanted to step up and say, I'd like to become a coach with you as a dad, I'm like, we're all over it. As long as their values match. Yes. Yeah. And their daughter doesn't become either heavily handed or put on a pedestal, as long as it's the same as my daughter is treated. You wouldn't know my daughter was my daughter at football, for instance. She's just a player.
Don't need any princesses. You need a load of good players, good people.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's been great to talk to you today, Graham, but obviously it's a first time guest on the podcast. It's only right we put you on the spot again. So Alex, if you could ready up the timer for me on the screen, that'd be great. We were going to ask one more question. We've done the icebreaker. This is the final thing to close up today's episode. So let's say that you're managing your under-8s team. It's a cup final. It's a big game. What is the main message that you're going to give to your players ahead of that game? We'll get the timer ready. It's on now. Let's go.
The main message in the cup final would be, remember, when we have a corner, that you have to kick the ball into the box. When we have a kick in from the side that you can dribble or pass, you've got those 2 options. And that's about it, really.
Very good summary.
There's nothing more to it than that. Some of them still forget that and don't know, and they certainly don't know what a free kick is. They don't know if it's their free kick or the opposition's, and what can we dribble from the free kick. So we're still at that level, and I'm all over that. So that's the simple part.
Very good summary. Well, that is all we've got time for today. Lucy, thank you for joining us, giving us a good insight on your career. Pete, of course, thank you for joining us, and of course, Graham, thank you for your time today and joining us. First time visit on the podcast. How have you found it?
Yeah, fantastic. It's been really good, and I will say I'm so proud and privileged to be sat next to Lucy in this capacity, having been a manager for the last coming up to 12 months, and I've had a really great time with her as a player, but to see her here growing as a human being is outstanding. I love that.
Fantastic. Well, as usual, for the viewers at home, you can see this episode and other episodes on the Story Hub YouTube channel. Follow the University of Derby Football Journalism account on Instagram, X and TikTok. and look out for the latest episodes coming soon. I've been Archie Brown, your host this afternoon. Thanks for joining us. See you soon.